The water was dark, murky, and foul. Guests at the Cecil Hotel complained that their showers sputtered with weak streams, their sinks filled with strange, bitter-tasting water, and at times, the liquid that came from the taps wasn't clear at all. Some described it as almost black, with a sickening odor that made their stomachs turn. On the morning of February 19, 2013, maintenance workers climbed up to the roof of the old hotel to inspect the massive water tanks that supplied the building. The roof was quiet, the air heavy with Los Angeles smog, and the giant steel containers loomed like silent sentinels. As they opened the hatch, the unimaginable horror revealed itself. Inside the tank, floating in the very water the hotel's guests had been drinking, bathing in, and brushing their teeth with, was the lifeless body of a young woman. Naked, pale, and hauntingly still, she had been there for weeks. Her name was Elisa Lam. She was only 21 years old. The discovery shocked the city, and soon after, the entire world. How had a young woman, traveling alone in Los Angeles, ended up dead in a water tank that was nearly impossible to access without keys, ladders, and the strength to lift a heavy steel lid? Was it an accident, a crime, or something far stranger? Within hours, the story would spread across continents, igniting fear, fascination, and endless speculation. Because this wasn't just a tragic death. It was the beginning of one of the most chilling modern mysteries of our time, one that still haunts the shadows of the Cecil Hotel. Elisa Lam was not a stranger to the weight of life. Born in Vancouver, Canada, she was the daughter of hard-working immigrants who ran a small restaurant. Elisa was bright, creative, and deeply curious about the world. She kept an online blog where she poured out her thoughts, writing about books, fashion, and the invisible struggles that often haunted her mind. She had dreams bigger than the walls around her. She wanted to travel, to see the world beyond her small Canadian city, to prove to herself that she could find freedom in movement. But freedom did not come without shadows. Elisa was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression, conditions she documented honestly online. Her words revealed a young woman who felt both fragile and determined, a soul caught between the weight of her mind and the hope for adventure. In January 2013, Elisa embarked on what she called her West Coast trip, a solo journey through California. She traveled by train and bus, stopping in San Diego before making her way to Los Angeles. It was supposed to be a brief stop, a pause in a longer journey. She chose to stay at the Cecil Hotel. But the Cecil was no ordinary hotel. Standing since 1927, it had been born out of ambition, a grand building for wealthy businessmen and tourists in downtown LA. But as the decades passed, the neighborhood decayed. The shining lobbies turned into dim corridors. What was once a place of glamour became a haven for crime, addiction, and tragedy. The walls of the Cecil have seen things that defy imagination. Serial killer Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker, once made the hotel his home. Suicides, overdoses, murders, so many lives ended within its rooms that locals whispered it was cursed. To some, it wasn't just a hotel. It was a vessel of darkness. And into this place, Elisa Lam walked, unaware of the weight of its history. For her, it was just a budget option in the middle of Los Angeles. For the world, it would become the last place she was ever seen alive. For the first few days of her stay, Elisa kept in touch with her parents in Vancouver. Every evening, she called them, reassuring them that she was safe. She spoke of her travels, her plans, her excitement. But beneath her words, there were signs, small cracks in the surface that hinted at something darker. Other guests at the Cecil reported unsettling encounters. Some said Elisa was friendly and talkative, but at times, her behavior was erratic, even alarming. The hotel eventually moved her from a shared room to a private one, after her roommates complained that she had frightened them with sudden outbursts. She posted on her blog during these days, her words revealing a storm inside her mind. Her thoughts wandered between humor, longing, and despair. One moment, she was a young traveler excited about the world. The next, she was a voice echoing her own isolation. On January 31, Elisa made her last known call to her parents. She promised to check out of the Cecil that day, continuing her trip to Santa Cruz. But she never showed up at the train station. She never boarded a bus. She never arrived. By nightfall, her silence screamed louder than words. Her parents, desperate and afraid, reached out to Los Angeles police. Within hours, officers were combing the hotel, searching for a girl who had vanished without a trace. But the Cecil was a labyrinth, long hallways, hidden staircases, locked doors leading to forgotten places. A building that seemed almost designed to swallow the lost. And in those first frantic days of searching, the police didn't find her. They scoured her room, searched common areas, brought in dogs that tracked her scent up to a window on the second floor, and then it stopped. As if Elisa had simply dissolved into the air. The guests at the hotel went on with their lives, unaware that something sinister was festering within the walls. But the truth was, Elisa Lam was already gone. 2 weeks after Elisa Lam vanished, the Los Angeles Police Department made a decision that would turn her case into a worldwide obsession. On February 14, 2013, they released surveillance footage from the Cecil Hotel. What played on millions of screens across the world was not just a missing person, it was a nightmare unfolding in real time. The footage showed Elisa in one of the hotel's elevators. At first, it seemed ordinary. She stepped in, wearing a red hoodie, her long dark hair framing her face. She pressed several buttons, but the elevator didn't move. Then, her behavior shifted. She leaned out cautiously, as though she was checking the hallway. She darted back inside, pressing herself against the corner of the elevator, hiding from something, or someone, just outside. Her hands moved in strange, unnatural patterns, gesturing at the air as if she was speaking to an invisible presence. She stepped out of the elevator, back in again, then out once more. The doors refused to close, hanging open longer than they should have, as if the elevator itself was caught in her confusion. And then, she was gone. Elisa walked out of frame and never returned. Seconds later, the doors finally slid shut, the elevator descending as if nothing had happened. The world was transfixed. Was she running from someone? Hallucinating? Playing a bizarre game? Theories multiplied overnight. Some saw the video as proof she was being followed. Others believed it was evidence of a psychotic episode. And then there were those who whispered about darker forces, the curse of the Cecil, or something supernatural lurking in its halls. What no one realized then was that this was the last known footage of Elisa alive. Within days, her body would be discovered in the rooftop water tank, forever tying her fate to that haunting elevator video. It wasn't just evidence. It was a cinematic horror, burned into the internet's memory, and it made Elisa Lam's story one of the most chilling mysteries of the 21st century. The discovery of Elisa Lam's body inside the hotel's rooftop water tank shocked the world, but for investigators, it raised more questions than it answered. The water tanks were not meant to be accessed by anyone other than staff. The doors to the roof were locked and equipped with alarms. And yet somehow, Elisa had found her way up, climbed onto the tank, opened the heavy steel lid, and slipped inside. At least, that was the official version. The Los Angeles County coroner ruled her death an accidental drowning. Toxicology reports showed no signs of drugs or alcohol, aside from the prescription medications she had been prescribed for her bipolar disorder. There were no visible injuries, no signs of physical assault. By all appearances, she had gone into that tank on her own. But the evidence didn't sit right with many. The elevator video, already viral across the globe, showed a girl acting like she was being followed, hiding in corners, peeking out as if someone, or something, was after her. Yet no one else was ever seen in the footage. Police never identified another figure. And then, there were the contradictions. Some guests claimed the rooftop doors were easy to bypass, while others insisted the alarm system would have gone off if Elisa had opened them. Maintenance staff said the tank lids were heavy and difficult to close from inside. How could she have managed it alone? Online, speculation exploded. Some believed the police had overlooked evidence of foul play, perhaps by another guest in the hotel. Others pointed to the Cecil's long, bloody history and insisted something more sinister was at work. Conspiracy theories flourished, claims of murder, cover-ups, even paranormal forces lurking in the hallways. The water tank itself became a symbol of unanswered questions. Why had Elisa gone there at all? Why did her trail seem to vanish inside a building that was supposed to be locked down? Investigators had no proof of foul play, but the world refused to believe the simplest answer. To many, the case wasn't just tragic, it was impossible. And yet, for her family, the mystery offered no comfort. They were left not with answers, but with silence, with the unimaginable horror of knowing their daughter had spent her final days lost inside the walls of a building infamous for swallowing lives whole. In the months after Elisa Lam's body was pulled from the rooftop water tank, grief gave way to outrage. Her family was devastated, not only by the loss of their daughter, but by the unbearable way in which she was found. They filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Cecil Hotel, arguing that the building had failed in its duty to provide a safe environment for its guests. Their argument was hauntingly simple: the roof should have been secured. The tank should not have been accessible. The alarms should have gone off. Somewhere, somehow, the hotel had failed Elisa. But in court, the hotel's defense was just as cold. They insisted that the building had done enough, that the roof was locked, that warning signs were posted, and that no reasonable expectation of safety could extend to a guest who climbed into a water tank on her own. To them, Elisa's death was a tragic accident, not a product of negligence. The case dragged on, her family forced to relive the details of her final hours through depositions and filings. But in the end, the court sided with the hotel. The lawsuit was dismissed, leaving the Lambs without justice, without closure, and without answers. For the Cecil, life went on. The hotel continued to operate, its reputation more infamous than ever, now branded with yet another tragedy. For investigators, the case was closed, sealed under the label of accidental drowning. And for Elisa's parents, it was the cruelest silence of all. No trial. No sentencing. No guilty party to face. Only a daughter gone forever, and a mystery that refused to die. For Elisa Lam's parents, the world's fascination with their daughter's death was almost unbearable. What began as desperate hope for her safe return had ended in devastation, and now millions of strangers dissected her final moments online. Every gesture in the elevator, every word she had written on her blog, became fuel for endless theories. To the world, it was a mystery. To them, it was their child. The community mourned her in a different way. Some saw Elisa as a symbol of mental illness misunderstood, a reminder of how fragile the line between control and chaos can be. Others saw her as another victim of the Cecil Hotel, a building that seemed to consume life after life, leaving behind nothing but tragedy. The hotel itself tried to rebrand, even changing its name, but its reputation was too deeply scarred. Elisa Lam had become part of its mythology, the final chapter in a history already dripping with blood and sorrow. Even today, visitors still flock to its doors, drawn by morbid curiosity, whispering her name in the hallways where she once walked. Her case has inspired documentaries, books, podcasts, and endless debates online. Yet for all the speculation, one truth remains unshaken: no one will ever truly know what happened in those final hours. Whether Elisa slipped into the tank during a manic episode, whether negligence played a role, or whether something darker lingers inside the walls of the Cecil, her story remains unsolved. What is left is not just a mystery, but a haunting question: how can someone so full of life, dreams, and promise vanish so completely, only to be found in a place no one could explain? And as the years pass, her story continues to echo. Not only as a cautionary tale, but as a reminder of how thin the veil is between safety and danger, sanity and madness, life and death. Elisa Lam will never be forgotten. Her final moments captured forever on a flickering elevator camera, her silence preserved in the shadows of a hotel that still refuses to give up its secrets. But the question remains, do you believe Elisa's death was simply a tragic accident, or was there something more hiding behind the doors of the Cecil Hotel? If you found this story chilling, don't forget to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe for more dark true crime stories told in depth. And make sure you turn on notifications, so you never miss the next tale we uncover. Because every whisper tells a story.